All of our roots lie in Canada. Some of us, different parts of the world, as you can see by the diversity. But now they've all led back to Canada. And we want to show Canada does have roots in football. We're here, obviously, with, you know, Nik Ledgerwood and Marco Carducci, two of the foundational signings for Cavalry. Two boys that have been through the system and they've gone and played somewhere else and they've kind of been and done everything to this point, and now being able to play at home is just a whole other level. So thank you, boys, for your time.
Of course.
Appreciate you guys coming down. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing us out to your office. Beautiful place.
Thank you to thanks to Rail Yard for setting this up for us here. Beautiful location. Hopefully be doing a little bit more of these with a lot more of the guys. So
especially if the beer tastes good.
You tell me, how is it?
It's delicious.
It's a good start.
We'll be back.
Nick's got a couple to drink.
I'll be here all afternoon.
Sorry, wife's not coming home.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, from the start of it, guys, you know the stories. So Nick, we'll start with you. Where does all this kind of come? Where did this start from for you as a soccer player?
Well, I grew up in Lethbridge, and soccer was never in our family. Like, if I look back on it, you know, my dad never played soccer. My mom never came from a sporting family. So it was, you know, to find where the roots came from, it's hard to pinpoint it. But, you know, my dad threw me into baseball when I was young, and it just never stuck. I just couldn't stay in a position.
Was that a punishment thing?
It was kind of, right? T-ball at the time, right? Everybody had to stay in their positions, and like, there's Nick out there in the outfield doing that one.
Yeah.
So I think it just was more, it was a cheap sport to get into, and you could run, you could have fun. There was no real constrictions to it. And I think that's how I got into soccer. And then, you know, my neighbors played it, so that love and the passion just kept building. And I think I just felt free. I felt, you know, you get together with your friends after school, you play soccer, you know, because you need a ball. That's it, you're done. You know, and you look at every other organized sport, you need facilities, equipment, everything else. So I think it was just the accessibility to it that drew me towards soccer.
Which is a nice thing.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Well, it is a great thing because now look at you.
Yeah. Well, and
Did all right.
And it doesn't hurt the pocket either, right?
Yeah.
For you know, any parents or families growing up, it's a great way to keep your kids physically active.
Correct.
And it's cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, opposite to Nick, my family, just a huge soccer family. I just grew up, like, as long as I can remember, either on TV, watching it, playing. So, older brother who played, both my parents played, so it was always in the family. So, can't even, probably 4 years old, started playing. But like I said, similar to what Nick said, I remember at school, from like literally as young as I can remember, we would just go out, someone would bring a ball, we'd just play all the time. And I played organized all the way through, but you know, some of the best memories are that, like at lunch hour, at recess.
I was just about to say recess, drop the jackets.
It was whoever.
Exactly how
Put your bags down for next.
Grade 5 against grade 6, like it was just go.
Yeah, just drop a jacket, 2 goals, there we go, play.
That's awesome.
So,
and you were talking about you coming from like a rooted family about soccer.
Yeah.
Did the rest of your family members play keeper, or were they?
My dad was the one who kind of got me into the position. I guess the story goes that when I was really young, and I can't remember this, I always enjoyed going in net. Like either way, like I'd always just want to be the one in net. Can't really remember that, but he did play, and he actually, funny, he still does play in goal a little bit. So yeah, I mean, like I said, an older brother who played, both my parents played, and we all loved the sport. It just kind of got passed on, kind of thing. And in terms of playing in goal, it just like started pretty young, and probably around 9 or 10, I think, is when I like full on took on just being a goalkeeper. So.
I feel like if you're Italian or you have any percentage of Italian in you have to at least try to play soccer.
And if you don't, Nona?
100%.
Yeah.
You gotta do what Nona giving you.
Exactly.
Are you hungry? Yeah? You're going to go hit the field now.
Exactly, right? Like it's in their blood
No,
to do
100%.
it.
Like I just, honestly, as long as I can remember, it's on TV. We were watching, we were going to play. I mean, just part of the family, part of the culture, and that's something that I just grew up with, right?
No,
so,
and you know, as far as with I don't know if you guys had this issue growing up, but soccer players are always kind of made fun of in this country growing up.
Yeah.
They're playing at school or playing out in parks. The hockey players, I grew up, most of my boys were hockey players growing up.
I think a lot of our friends were.
No choice. It's just I just wanted to fit in.
Yeah, but it was funny. Like I had a lot of friends that would play soccer outdoors, but play hockey for the indoor season. So they had a mix of that, and so I don't think it was really getting picked on or like you play soccer, because I think my group of friends, they did both.
Yeah.
And I was one of few that did outdoor indoor type of thing. So, but. Yeah, you grew up in a hockey country, right? Of course, people, soccer players, they dive, they're weak, they're this and that. And you say, but you guys get subbed off every, 30 seconds. Like, go play soccer for 90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Go
run 10K in a game.
Go run 10K, 12K, and tell me how you feel.
Or just playing goal, it's fine.
Right?
Yeah,
or just playing goal.
You don't want to do the run, just playing goal.
You don't even have to warm up with a team.
Do your own thing.
Well, let's stay on the childhood side of stuff, okay? What would you say was one of your most memorable, I guess, things growing up as a child playing the sport?
For me, honestly, like I said, I grew up playing it, and what I really remember and what probably kind of like really developed my love for the game more than anything was what we were talking about. Like I just remember literally snow, rain, like could have been minus 20. We were out there and we were playing all the time. And I think I grew up with a bunch of friends who also love soccer, which was great because we talked about it, we played. We enjoyed those times together, and I think that kind of just informal playing whenever. I used to remember I'd go in my backyard and just play by myself. Like I would just, when I wasn't in goal at the time, I'd just get a ball and kick it around and pretend I was
break
my
fence
favorite
boards.
I was just about to say, did you break windows?
Oh my goodness, I remember my dad, our shed looked like, oh my God, it's been in like World War II.
The chain link fence in my backyard still bent back like that. I was trying to fix it, but it's still like this, and it's
that's great, because you probably walk by and you see it and you're like,
that's it.
I did that.
That's it.
And that's what brought me to where.
So for me, it was that. It was just playing all the time, right, and just loving it, and like even now, it's still fun just going out and juggling a ball or playing with your friends. Right? It's good.
I think a lot of my memories were the little tournaments that you'd go on as a kid. Coming from Lethbridge, our big tournaments would go to like Kelowna or Trail or Castlegar, right? Those were like our big tournaments. And I remember like you're traveling with all your friends. You first time maybe you could stay in a hotel room with your friends or your buddies, and you're out there playing a tournament. And I think just those bus trips and like 13-hour bus trips with your friends all in the back, just you build a bond with them and a friendship while building this love for soccer. And I think, looking back on it, I keep in touch with, a handful of people I played with when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, right? And we're still, like, a couple of us are still like best friends.
Which is awesome.
And, and it's built from that, those tournaments, and, thank God I had parents that would come out and support it and let me do it. But I think those are some of the best memories for sure. Those little organized tournaments. And I think that's at a stage where you've made a select team or a rep team, so you are good enough, and now you're competing against Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, Kelowna. So there's a little prestige there as well. It's not just house league.
Yeah, and those trips are always good memories because you're with the boys at a young age, no parents.
Exactly.
Sometimes you always got a couple
little
guys
bit of trouble.
I was just about to say right now the hallway's at 10 o'clock in the evening. It's late.
Exactly.
We're supposed to be in bed by 10. Curfew 9 o'clock.
Past curfew, sneaking in another room.
Just little stuff like that. When you look back on it, you were like, that was those are good memories, and you still remember it 20 years later. So.
Even now, like we've gone up to Edmonton recently a couple times. It's different, right? Because we're going there for the Prospects game, the El Clasico, and
it's a lot quieter than when I remember. Like the England trip was not as that trip to Edmonton was super quiet. I found on the bus, everyone was like.
Well, the funny thing for me is like kind of like what Nick was just saying. We always drive up, and coming from Calgary, like the same memories. I see the hotels I stayed at when we were young, and I'm just like, I remember
just
going there. It's just reminiscing, right?
Yeah.
It's like those were just fun times, and not even. I mean, of course, like we went on a couple of bigger trips too. I remember going to Germany a couple of times with the teams, and just those are like. First of all, eye-opening, right? You go see it at a young age like that, but just those little trips too. And then we see these old hotels we stayed at, the soccer centers we played at for provincials and whatnot. It's like just great memories.
So if you had to narrow it down to one person, who would you say is your sports hero?
What would you say, Nick?
My sports hero, other than I'd have to put my dad. He's not necessarily a sports hero, but to allow me to dream, from being young and not stepping on any, saying you can't go over to Europe and play, or you can't do that. I would say my dad is he never pushed me. He found a very fine line between, supporting me and, trying to help improve me. And it was as soon as I started showing that passion and love for soccer, so did he. And he had to educate himself. He was my first real coach. So he,
Had a lot of timeouts, I'm guessing you had?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Nick, you pissed me off. Like, there's the corner.
Exactly. We're going running today. No, but like, looking back on it, for being a father now, looking back on it and saying like, okay, I'm going to take my spare time, my free time, and coach you and help you and let you dream. I mean, that's probably, I'd say, is a sports hero. Yeah. And the other one that is really like sports was Owen Hargreaves. Yeah. And I think just because we kind of did similar paths, left almost at the same age to go to Germany. I mean, obviously he went to Bayern Munich and then to Manchester United, which is unbelievable for a kid from Calgary to do. But
gave me goosebumps just thinking about it. So
right?
it was great.
And it was amazing. One of my early memories when I went to Germany was because I was at 1860 Munich and he was literally across the street at Bayern Munich. Yeah. He got a hold of the club and after training one day came over, picked me up, took me to the driving range, went to his house, and then we went over and had a barbecue with a couple of his teammates from Bayern Munich. And I'm like, this guy to reach out and help another kid, like he was just such a down-to-earth person and to kind of help out. So he was definitely a person that I kept my eye on throughout my whole career to see how he was doing, and just his work ethic as a player was.
Just a question: was it you that reached out to him, or was it Owen that reached out to you?
I think if I reach out to him, he'd be like, "Who's this phone number?" So I don't know how it kind of came to be, but he knew that I was at 1860 Munich, and he went through the club to get a hold of me. And said, kind of reached out. Look, he went through it at a young age. He knew what, the hardship of learning a language, different culture. Yeah. He's like, hey, if you need anything, come help.
And that shows his class because,
sure.
I always hear a lot about guys go playing overseas, especially like in South America's a little worse. I know guys that have gone over there and they get treated like garbage by the other players. Yeah. So if you don't have that support system, it's hard to how do you go day to day? Yeah. Well, seeing having a guy like
a lot of people, whenever I say like that kind of story, they're all like, "Oh, did you ask him why he never played for Canada?" I said, "No, like
that's not what this is about.
That's not what it's about." Yeah. And to be fair, he was cut from the provincial team. He was cut from the Canadian team.
True.
So there's that argument as well. People want to play for Canada, but only if Canada wants them as well. Like there's a give or take, and at the end of the day, the career he had, he did all right.
I don't want to get off topic, but you bring that up in a sense where he didn't, make provincials, all that other stuff. And you look at kids these days, and they do feel like they're down just because they don't get signed for this, don't get signed for that. Yeah. And it mentally it does kind of mess with your brain.
Yeah,
for sure.
But on the other end of it,
but I think that's almost where the better players come from, is because they have two choices, right? Yeah. Either it's done, pack it in kind of thing, or it's time to make that reaction where now it's time to prove people wrong. Yeah, now you have that chip on your shoulder where they become then almost the better players at the end of the day because they have something to prove.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome. What about you, sports hero? Since Nick talked for the last 20 minutes.
Okay, well, sports hero, if I gotta choose one.
Nick will be busy for a couple minutes now, you're good.
Your turn. I don't know why you guys didn't order any beer.
I think we were supposed to.
The one guy I gotta say, no doubt, and this is probably an answer you get a lot from goalkeepers, is Gianluigi Buffon as a sports hero. I mean, he's been an icon in the game forever, basically as long as he's been in the game, which is like longer than I've been alive. You know what I mean? For him to still be competing at the level he is after doing it for so long and the age he's at now, it's like it doesn't happen, right? And obviously he's a different breed kind of thing, like what he's achieved and the level he plays at. But I remember when I first started really going deep into goalkeeping, which was again, 9, 10 years old, he was just at the peak of his career. Won a World Cup at, I believe he was 28 years old, and you're like, this guy's the best in the world. 10 years later, people were still saying the same thing about him being one of the best, if not the best in the world for a long time. So as a goalkeeper, he's the kind of guy who you're just like, man, first of all, what he does on the field, but another part of it is just the person he is off the field too. And you see he's won almost everything. Still waiting on the championship.
Hands down.
He's won almost everything. And he's still, no one hates the guy. Everyone loves him. And it's like, again, he's on a different scale. But when you see that,
he's one of those world-class players where people love to see him have success.
Exactly.
Right?
Doesn't matter where he is.
And there's very few like that. I think, you talk about Ronaldo or Messi, and you'll always have people that are like, I don't like Ronaldo, I don't. But when you speak about Buffon and the way he carries himself, he's a player that you want to do well, right? It's
and you see that's clearly just comes down to his character and everything, right? And you hear it from other top players. Exactly what Nick said.
Did you ever try to mimic any of his moves?
I think there's a lot, in terms of goalkeeping, there's a lot I try to take from a bunch of guys. In terms of the style of goalkeeper, we're probably different in size and this and that. He's taller than I am, that kind of thing. So you pick out little details, but I think it's just his leadership, right? His leadership and his presence that it doesn't matter if you're this style of goalkeeper or this style of goalkeeper. That's something you can take from anybody. And from him, again, I mean, this is just from an outside observer, right? But you see it and you're like, clearly he has the respect of his teammates, he has the respect of his opponents, and he's just a leader all the time.
Yeah, where I really we always had a soft spot for him, really, right? But we have our own ties to goalies and players we like. But watching him, how he's kind of mentored Donnarumma, who came into Milan at 16 to be first team goalie, and then being a backup. He made being a backup to Gigi Buffon.
Yeah.
You're not going to play for a decade.
But the fact of the matter, you're playing behind this keeper.
Yeah. One of the best.
All that knowledge, you just soak it up.
Yeah.
You just listen to everything you can.
And Nick said the same thing, and this goes without saying for me too. Buffon on an icon level, of course, but my dad is literally the reason why I love the game and the reason why I got to the level I did, because similar to what Nick said, but a little bit different. My dad really loves soccer. He's been supporting it. He's the one who pushed me into it, and goalkeeping especially. But he was my coach up until 14, and he's still basically is. We train together.
Still coaching you from the
I was
sidelines?
just about to say, you probably still get yelled at.
Every now and then he gives me that look, and I'm like, oh.
Whenever you see somebody behind the net, you know it's Marco's dad.
Yeah. How many times did he ever throw a shoe at you?
Never threw a shoe, but I got my fair share of constructive criticism.
Hey, we all have the
you
way
know what? To be fair though, I think he knew early on, and again he pushed me, and he knew when to be a dad and when to be a coach, and for that I admire the way he was able to find that balance, and even to this day he pushes me. And when I started taking those bigger steps and I went to Vancouver, and he kind of stepped back and said, hey, he's in the environment he needs to be, and now I can just be an outside observer to him. But to this day, we still just talk about it, little things, and I owe him a lot for that. So he's definitely a hero for me too.
That's awesome. So both dads, you look at the difference in even though your roots for soccer started between you and then your dad.
Yeah.
And now you're going to create that legacy now, pushing your kids on. I'm assuming.
I'll push them.
Soccer, nothing else. Only soccer.
No, daddy, you're like,
come on.
18 months he's training.
18 months. He said we already got. He's going through cones now.
Crawling through cones.
That's huge. And your roots are Italian. Where is your background in Italy from?
So my dad's side is from outside of Rome. It's Latina is the province there, so it's about an hour, 45 minutes from Rome. My mom's side of the family is from the south.
Calabrese?
Calabria, or Calabrese, which is, you just flip a coin and most of them are Hazard or Calabrese here, A lot of them actually did come to Canada, right? So, there's dad's side's from outside Rome, mom's from the south,
Your side? Is it both?
everybody from the Windy City?
Windy City.
That's it?
Yeah, born and raised.
Really?
Roots.
And family?
Yeah. Born and raised.
Are your parents there? Grandma and grandpa?
They have a little bit of Ukraine German background. but I believe they were born in North America.
Oh, wait, so you're like third, fourth gen Canadian. That's crazy.
Can't answer that question because the beer's kicking in.
Well, that's what roots are.
Never forget that.
No. Well, you know, talking back and forth, you know, about heroes and everybody that's helped you out. Let's switch over to clubs. Favorite club, Marco? Give me your favorite club, Marco.
It's Lazio. This is Lazio.
Really?
Same thing. This is just goes how deep it is. As long as I can remember, the second I was born, my dad is a Lazio supporter. His dad was a Lazio supporter, and it just gets passed down. We've been wearing jerseys. There's pictures of me and my brother when we were babies with like little jerseys on, or toddlers, right? Like, it's I like to give guys a hard time because everyone's a Juve supporter in Italy now, because, you know, it's nice when you win the trophy every year.
When you got one of the best players on your team.
It's easy. It's passed down. It's a true supporter culture, and I love that too. And, you know, I'll do the same thing. If I have kids one day, they're going to be Lazio supporters. That's it.
No choice.
Easy.
What about you?
Can I skip the question?
No, must answer.
I'm a Man United supporter.
Thank God. I was expecting drop Liverpool or drop anybody else.
But it's sad times.
Well, I mean, a couple changes happened over the last couple of days, which maybe could do something. But
I know
it's
for
been
like 4
rough.
years, though, no?
Yeah, since like 2012, I think, since Sir Alex Ferguson back in 2012.
But I still remember I had a coach when I was, it must have been 13, 14. And I actually skipped school to watch the Champions League final when United played Bayern Munich.
That's awesome.
And I went over to his house, and I remember like 2 minutes left, thinking like, yeah, they got it. There's a goal. I'm like, what? Right? So
you make it through 70 minutes of this play.
Yeah.
You know, down to the last 10, possibly. You know, 80th minute.
But I mean, that just was another feeling for me of, you know, how cool is it to support this team. Yeah. And then the funny thing was, it would have been 3 years after that is when I went on trial with Bayern Munich. And it was a week-long trial, and the first 4 days I was with their youth teams, and then the fourth day I got to train with the reserve team, and they said for the last day you get to train up with the first team. So it was those players that I had watched, you know, 3-4 years ago in the Champions League final, and they gave me a little tour of the locker room and everything, and seeing, like, you know, Oliver Kahn's locker and you know, those kind of players. Giovanni Elber, he trained there. There was a few other ones, and you're just like, oh my goodness, you know, it was unbelievable.
It's hard not to get starstruck in that.
For sure. And I was completely in awe, and maybe a little ignorant to I didn't know how big Bayern Munich was until finally going over there, and you walk through their training grounds, and the youth director, when we walked through their physio room, he was kind of like, oh, there's $18 million laying there on that table, there's $25 million laying on that table, and he's been injured for a year, he's $40 million. And it's like, oh my God, you know, and you're just like, it's a completely different world to what Canadians are used to. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. But yeah, Man United.
That's a tough one to talk about. We're in the same boat. So I'm a United supporter.
Why don't we do this after this? You know, after we're done shooting this, we'll sit down, we'll have another beer.
Yeah, and we'll cry a little bit. We'll get through it.
We're doing okay.
So here we're going to get a little, kind of take a little bit of a right turn here, but if you had to pinpoint one low point in your career where you almost thought about kind of quitting and, you know, is this what I want to be doing? Could you take that back to one spot?
Do you want to take a stab?
I think I could, sure. Yeah. I think I could. I would say maybe not a particular moment, but probably the 2016 season was the last year, 2016. It was the last year I was in Vancouver. And before that point, I had so I went there in 2011, joined the academy. And then at that time, it's different, it's youth soccer, but it was like boom this, boom that, boom that. So I went from, you know, the 16s and success, national team programs. The U17s, I was a captain, we went to the World Cup. 18, so I kept moving up, signed to the first team in 2014. At that point, you go into the senior game, and, you know, we could talk about that for a whole another hour, probably, just in terms of the opportunities and whatnot. And a lot of it was on my side as well, for sure. but it kind of plateaued, right? So for a few years, it was great. Again, so it was kind of like one step, next step, next step, and then you get used to that, and then you plateau, and then it kind of drops a bit, and wasn't playing often at all, which was tough, especially for a goalkeeper. So I felt like I was really just like, my career was stagnant from like 17 to 20. Nothing really changed, which is a critical time. And again, that's what now you can talk to CPL.
Those are the years where most kids, I think,
they do
drop
fall
off, right? Because there's no.
My kid quit 60.
Well, that's what I mean. Because we're in Canada, there's no pathway. There was no pathway.
Yeah.
Now the doors are actually.
Now there is,
you
right?
talk about guys who, and I play, I'm sure you can see the same thing, but for example, the U17 national team, the U20s even, there's guys who are like stars, unbelievable, nothing but they're going to be the next big thing, and then you don't hear about them 2 years later.
Because they just don't get picked up anywhere.
You don't get opportunities, and then it's difficult. So for me, I went through a time where it became difficult, and to your point, I definitely felt like, I was like, man, it's not fun, right? It's not fun being, you're going into training, and it's the same old, and you're worried about, you're not playing, and there's other guys, and it's not an easy lifestyle at any point, right? But difficult when you're not playing, it's difficult not getting those opportunities. So say that 2016 season, I kind of felt like, okay, well, things have slowed down. I knew it was part of the process, and I stayed positive as much as I could. At the end of that season, I had another option left on my contract, but it didn't get picked up by the Whitecaps, and at that time I did look on the bright side and said, I need a change, I need to get out of there. But leading up to that point, it was tough. I definitely felt like, I don't want to say I fell out of love with a game, but it felt like that at points.
Yeah,
for
sure. Yeah,
it was like, this isn't what it used to be, and I was like, you know what, like, am I going to be able to make a career out of this, or are things still going where I wanted to go? And
I think from an outside perspective on soccer and making it into the professional ranks, a lot of outside people see just the I wouldn't even say glamour, but highlights and.
But it kind of is, though, because that's like the point where everybody wants to be at.
Yeah,
but
sure.
all that other stuff leading up to that.
Exactly, all the stuff behind closed doors.
Yes.
Where the mental aspect of it is so big.
Yeah.
That's my question. Is like, how did you overcome that? Like mentally, like going through this.
It was tough. Yeah, I mean, it was really tough. I think personally, I reached out a bit, and I knew from older goalkeepers in the club and whatnot that they said, hey, like, there's times where it's going to be up and down, and you're going to have to just kind of bide your time in a way. But it is difficult. I think I went through a point where I definitely was like, man, like I don't know where this is going to go anymore, and it was hard because, like I said, 3 years before that, it was just like this player of the year, the next year the same, and it was like I never was like, oh, it's just going to keep going. I didn't rest on my laurels, kind of thing. I kept working, but the pressure kicks in. It's a senior game now. You're not getting an opportunity, and like Nick said, outside looking in, man, you're a professional soccer player. Life's good, but there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of downside that you just don't see. So I went through that for sure, and I think more than anything, obviously had good relationship with some of my friends, and my family obviously helped just keep positive and kept going through that. But I knew at the same time, through experience talking to older guys and whatnot, that it was just a matter of, like, you have to keep your head down at times and just keep working. And change is good, right? I mean, at that point, it was like, I'm leaving Vancouver. I've been here for almost 7 years. It's like, wow, like, I don't know anything different than this. And I'm sure you've gone through similar things, and you go and you're just in the wild kind of thing, right? And you have to go kind of find your way and just keep pushing. So it wasn't easy, but
what about you, Nick?
Sure. Yeah, mine was pretty easy. And to point out, I was, when I had first moved to Germany, probably about 4 months after I'd been in Germany, where the novelty kind of wore off of, cool, to your parents aren't here, your friends aren't here, you don't speak the language.
How old were you then?
I was 18.
Yeah, so it's like
18. I started questioning, like, I left Canada. I left a very comfortable, situation. I had great friends, great family. The environment was great, and I started questioning all of it, because now all of a sudden you're 18, you're in a small sports dorm. We had one shared kitchen with I think there was about 9 players. Everybody had their own room, and I remember one day the youth director kind of came into the room, and I was, depressed, down kind of thing, and started tearing up, and he goes, like, what's wrong? And I was like, I miss home. Like, I miss my friends, family, stuff that I used to do day-to-day basis. And when I moved there, whenever I felt like that, I always called home. Always tried to reach out. And he goes, next time you feel like that, don't call home. And I was like, that's pretty German. That's pretty German of you. But he goes, call home when you have a good game or you have a good day. Then call home, because then you'll associate with having a good day, talking to your parents. You got good news to share. Whereas if you're depressed and you call home, that's when you miss home, right? And you talk to your parents, you'll miss it even more. And that kind of helped change the perspective of it.
Which makes it does make sense.
It all makes sense. It all makes sense. And then just learning the language and going through the steps. As soon as you learn the language and adapt to the culture, then you feel like you're part of the team. You make friends, and so I think getting through that little dip was huge, because there was points where I was like, man,
rather go home.
And I'd come home for Christmas break and be like, oh, I love coming home. Everything's perfect. Why don't I just? And I dreaded those flights back to Germany. But then you get there, you get in the swing of things, and so that was probably when I was 18 was kind of
the hardest part.
Yeah.
Switch it up with this a little bit here, right? I felt that was heartwarming, but at the same time, was there any point in time where either one of you guys were looking at your life and being like, maybe I should change my career, maybe I should do this, maybe I should be a mall Santa, maybe I should be a wizard?
Yeah, I mean, mall Santa is only once a year, right? It's tough to get into.
Well, depending on
pretty
what kind of
tough to make money.
Good paycheck if you're going to do that just once.
I don't think there was ever a point where I didn't want to play soccer. And I had a few, I broke my ankle when I was in Germany. I had a couple other surgeries, and I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, maybe I'll just go back and go to school and do something else. But I think that's why I've had a long career. Yeah. That's why I think there's so many other players that get distracted, or there is an injury or another opportunity, and those players will never stick it out, right? So I think that
you always have that fallback almost.
Yeah. You like, I'll just go to school, kind of thing, or I'll just do this. Whereas I think I love the games too much to say, nah, I'll try something else. There's too much love there to just put that aside.
Yeah, I think probably around that same time I was telling you, I think naturally some thoughts crept in where you're like, you know what, and this might be part of the reason too, because you have so many other opportunities and because you have access to, like, you could go to school or whatever. It was like, you know what, if it doesn't work, big deal. But at the same time, I'm the same with Nick. I was like, there's no way I'm just going to be able to just drop it and go. So as much as there were dark times, and I was saying I felt depressed at times too, because it was tough. Again, I was in Vancouver, so I got used to that, and that became my second home. So it wasn't like I was ever struggling with not being able to communicate with people, or I was way too far away. I mean, it's an hour time change. I could talk to my parents whenever. It wasn't an issue. But there were times where
you moved over at a time where there was FaceTime, iPhones.
I
had an international calling card.
Payphones, or were you actually?
What year was that?
Anywhere.
Year was like 2000, roughly around 2000.
It would have been 2003.
Cell phones just making a splash. No one's talking internationally.
Wasn't an issue for
crazy.
me. Just to show how much older Nick is.
Right?
Just go grandpa.
A little bit of experience.
Uncle Nick.
But back to that point, I think that's why South American players are such great footballers, because a lot of them, they don't have any other choice, and if they want to support a family or they want to do well, that's how they're going to do it, right? So and I think that's why Canada still doesn't produce a lot of great talented players, is because it's a great place to live. There's so many other options. There's
it's not an outlet.
That was the mindset I tried to. So when I did have that time where I was like, you know what, whatever, I loved the game too much as well, and I knew that I wanted to make a career out of it, that I kind of tried to adopt that mindset where I was like, this has to happen. This has to work. I knew that not necessarily, of course, because other people do actually really deal with that.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, I need to have that mindset. Otherwise, someone else
and
will.
you feel that pressure from your family and friends too, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy who, you know, everybody was so happy for you to go, and then all of a sudden you come back and you're going to college, and they're like, what happened?
Yeah.
So there's all that added pressure as well, right?
Yeah. And you have to find a way to use it, right?
You know, how many times when you came back for Christmas or summer vacation where all your friends were like, oh man, that's awesome, friends, family. So you're thinking, I don't want to come back next Christmas and be like, oh, so what do you got next semester?
Yeah.
Right? Like
it's different.
There's a lot of pressure that I think athletes put on themselves.
Yeah.
So
and it's about finding, you know, that balance that works for you. I agree with you 100% that it was like, you know, you had that pressure and you maintained that drive, and that pushed you. That, to answer your earlier question too, is like that's kind of what helped me just push through it and be like, you know what, you have to just keep going.
No, it's chalked down to really discipline, because it's easy to just say, you know what, I don't want to get, when you get in that depressed mode, say, you know what, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home.
But that's strong. If you look at it, it is a strong, not only strong towards your guys' character, but it's strong in a sense where people these days, doesn't matter who you are, they hit that rut and they're like, you know what, it's easy for me to get up and I'm just going to walk
Yeah.
As soon as it gets difficult, whatever.
Take a different road.
And that's the nice thing, like Marco, you brought something up that was great, where you can actually turn to somebody, talk to somebody.
Yeah, of course.
People reaching out to you, vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, being able to come back to that happy medium and understanding that, hey, there is more for me. And I can keep producing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that's huge. Well,
so what would you say out of being local, you know, being Calgary and being Lethbridge, Southern Alberta boys, what would you say is your best part, or the best part of kind of living in this part of the world?
In this part of the world?
Let's say, what's your best part about Calgary?
Calgary?
Calgary.
I think, you know, just apart from the Canadians as a whole, the you know, the mentality that you get when you go out in the city or you meet people or even talk to people at the soccer center, Canadians have that way of making you feel welcome.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. You know, like compared to anywhere else in the world, you always feel welcome coming to Canada or being in Canada. And I think, you know, Calgary is the exact same way. You go to a soccer center, you go to the mall, you go anywhere, you feel welcome, right? And it makes you feel warm, it makes you feel good, it makes you want to come out to places and do stuff. And I think Calgarians are very helpful people as well. And then, you know, take apart that, the city's unbelievable. I mean, you have mountain views, you have a great downtown, the summertime, it's a beautiful city. So I think, you know, overall, Calgary in Canada is an amazing place to live without having the threats or worries of what goes on in other places in the world, especially now, right? Like, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff in Calgary, right? Like, it's a safe city, and there's no, you know, big disasters going on that, you know, you see across the world. But right, like it's a great place to live and a great place to raise families here.
Yeah. I think it's always tough for me, like, because Calgary's home, right? And people always talk about it too. When I did go to Vancouver's a beautiful city, and you know, but like coming back home, something about this place that it's almost hard to put a word on it. And Nick kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, like, we have the mountains so close. It's a beautiful city. It's a great place to grow up and a great place to live. For me, all my family's here. So maybe moving away when I was young and coming back and always being like, coming back home meant being with my family, being with my friends. And, you know, I love the city. To talk about, again, the environment and like having the mountains so close. Yeah. You know, it's a beautiful place, but there's just something about it that it's home for me, right? And now to be a part of something where I can, you know, grow with it and be a hometown guy, and you know, Nick's very much the same. You know, he's from Lethbridge. It's, you know, we're Southern Alberta boys, and like just to kind of grow with that and be a part of the culture of the city, it means a lot. But I love this place.
Talking about the sport, okay, during game day, do you guys have any rituals? Like, Marco, do you kiss your post? Do you rub them? What do you do? Like, what's a pregame ritual?
Do you rub your post?
That might have got a little personal, a little too personal.
No.
Here's my laugh.
No, none of that. No, I used to have a couple, like, I was more ritual style stuff, but now I kind of just trash that. It's more a routine, right? So if I have, I try to have a similar game day process all the time. So it's not, by the book, and I'm not like religious about it. If I don't do it, I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna not play well, nothing like that. But I like to be in a routine. So if I can keep a good routine, there's nothing, again, crazy superstitious before a game that I do. And personally, just the one thing that I you experiment with some things. I'm not very rah-rah, kind of, get pumped up and get amped. I'd rather be the opposite when I play. I'd rather calm myself down. So you'll actually see me before games. Typically when we do the anthems and we're standing out there, I'll just take a second, I'll take a couple of breaths, I'll close my eyes and just kind of zone into it, But again, that whole, like, crazy ritual superstitious, I don't even try. I don't even bother with that, because then it's like you're focused on, and it might work for some people, but for me it's like you're thinking about something that literally has no impact on how you're going to play. For me, it's keeping a good routine, staying nice and calm before the game, and then just doing what I prepare to do. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm very similar to that. I was never really into the rituals, kiss a boot, this type of thing. And it's funny because I would be in a locker room and I would see players like pick up their shoe, kiss their boot, put it on, and they'd go out and have a shit game. And you're like, well, that didn't help anybody.
Kiss it a bit more next time.
Give it a little bit of time next time.
Right? And I think it all comes down to just like a good preparation, a good routine for a game. And that way, when you're on the field and you're not thinking about, I didn't tie my right shoe first.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't make that pass. No, you didn't make that pass because, other reasons. Right? It has nothing to do with it. So I think just having a good routine before games, I hate feeling rushed on game day. That's my biggest kind of pet peeve. I hate feeling rushed. I like to get to the field earlier than I need to be.
I'd always see this guy at the Starbucks outside of the field, and
right? Like
we'd be there an hour before.
Like even to know that I have time. I hate being in the locker room and being like, 2 minutes before you go out and you're rushing to put on your shoes. And I'm like, I want to be ready. I want to go through my routine and be ready when I'm ready, not when somebody else is kind of dictating it. So I think that's the only thing for me, and of course,
agree with that too.
I was going to say that calming sensation. It probably does help you out a lot.
Yeah. And I think even having good music in the locker room, that music creates an atmosphere with everybody. Even if they don't know it, it gets people up, happy. They're talking to people before the game, and it creates a good atmosphere before the team goes out. As opposed to just having you've been with some teams or away trips where somebody forgot to bring the stereo or something. You're like,
what's going on?
Wow, this sound's just dead, right? And you question, like, is everybody ready? Kind of thing. Like, there's no like, at least if the music is there.
It's thinking on like the side of music. Is there a special kind of genre you guys must listen to, or
I think mostly it always ends up hip hop or like. A dance, techno, anything upbeat.
Hypes you up a little bit. Not like classical on the headphones.
Some people do though. Some people love getting relaxed, and I'm just like, nah. Before game day, I gotta get
up.
It's just all up here.
Yeah. It's just those mental routines that make you feel good as soon as you step on the field.
So would you say, post game now, jumping out of that? So post game, would you say that? Based on your performance, so bad performance, you would kind of do one thing after a game, and if you have a good performance, how would you kind of lead into the post game on that side of things?
For me, I try to be almost similar. Like, of course, if you have a poor game and you lose, you're not going to go partying and have the time of your life, because you shouldn't. Got to be professional about that. Is it more like
just put a plate of food in front of me?
Kind of, yeah, it depends. No, but for me, it's more, again, like, if you have a great performance and you win, of course you want to celebrate it, you want to enjoy it, but at the same time, it's like on the opposite end of that, when you do have a bad performance, it doesn't, I don't think you want to be in a sense that it's like, we won, let's go party, you can have the time of your life, great. You lose, I have to go home and be sad and go lay in my bed and go to sleep with it. I think I just, again, good food, family, friends, be with my teammates a bit, and either way, it's about of course, if you lose or you play poorly, it's you gotta move on from that. You have to be professional about the way you act afterwards. but I don't want it to be dependent on how well or how poorly I played. It's just about
sometimes it is though. I mean,
for sure, yeah. At different times in the season too. I'll admit when we had our run in the PDL and I enjoyed that. Right, we were having a clean sheet streak. And it was knockout, right? So we would win a game and be on the next round, or we won and secured our spot in playoffs. You deserve to enjoy that, of course.
It's different when you can get after a victory, you get the whole team out, and not only is it good for you as an individual, but it builds a team.
Just the morale aspect of everything.
Yeah, and that's where you get the good stories within a team, and the following week you say, you know what, I'll work my ass off for him, because now we have a different connection than just soccer. We talked about something on the weekend, this and that. You build a bond with players through going out.
Yeah.
And it might sound
being together off the field, though. That's
what
it is.
Yeah.
Humans, right? Your friend.
I've always heard, like, from other sports players or everybody that does play sports. Just think the biggest thing is, yes, you do have your, of course, family, but then your other part of it is your team.
Yeah.
Because they're like the family. You spend so much time on the
road. And that's it. And when I was younger, I struggled with losing. Don't talk to me for 2 days after a loss. I would be that kind of guy, right? Where 2 days just don't talk to me. And now it's almost like as soon as I'm done changing, showered, done my cool down, it's like everything I did I could do, and then it's time to get on with it.
You move on,
right? And I think that happens through age as well, because I don't want to let a Saturday game ruin my Sunday and Monday. Like, as long as I know that I did everything I could, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
As soon as you start thinking, well, I could have done this, could have done that, should have done this, then that's
you'll be in your head for
right.
Yeah,
kill yourself. Really.
Yeah. So, and I think going out is a part of sports. Celebrate.
Yeah.
If you work hard and you win, celebrate it, because then it's that memory, right?
Again.
You want to win. Why do you want to win? Because it feels good.
Yeah.
You get a bond with the guys. You get to go out, have a great time. Whereas you lose, you just, like you said, you go home, you have your family, have a good meal, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
So it's a work hard, play hard mentality.
And I think it comes down to a lot of it is, it's the highs are so high, but your lows are like,
and I was literally just gonna say, you have to find a balance between, you
try to find a happy medium.
You don't want to be too high with the highs, and you don't want to be too low, because it sucks. No one wants to lose. And again, if you play poorly, I'm the same as Nick. I went through times where, like, I'd have a poor performance, and then I'd just be nailing myself for it, and I'd be in my own head. And,
why did I do
like
this?
You said,
Why did I do that?
If you do that and you get in that cycle, you'll just stress yourself. Like, it's tough. It's tough to deal with that. So I don't know about you either, but, like, for me, after a game, I almost, of course, if we win, I'll be happy and enjoy that feeling. And if I lose, I'll try to, deal with that feeling, but move on from it. But I almost don't like to think about a game until, like, the next day. In an objective way.
Let the emotions
too.
kind of settle.
And that's discipline too. I mean,
it's tough. But then the next day I look back and say, if there were things I need to improve on, I'll look back and we'll talk about it, sure. But I'm not nailing myself for it.
And it's funny, some coaches are that way too. I had some coaches that after games, they wouldn't even come in the locker room and talk.
That's true.
Because their emotions were so high that they didn't want to say something that was out of context, right? So they would wait till the next day, till they had time to let it settle, and then they'd have a proper team meeting, which at the time I was like, man, you could at least come in the locker room and say something, but thinking, realizing if they have that much emotion.
Like, there's that story that comes out with Fergie when he angry, and they had to call Fergie the hairdryer, because he'd come in and just start, like, right in your face screaming, and he threw the boot.
Yeah.
And he was trying to hit the wall, but he hit Beckham in the face, and Beckham couldn't play because he split his head open.
You got stuff like that going on, right?
Yeah, because your emotions.
That's a story you'll never forget about.
Right?
Forever.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about, highs, lows. I don't know both your guys' backgrounds, competing in different places. Where's one of your favorite places to compete? Or was your favorite place to compete?
It's got some good ones to choose from, hey?
Stockholm.
Nice.
When I played with Hammarby in Stockholm, and it was after I'd been in Germany for 10 years, and it kind of came to that point where contract ran out, was looking for something new, and got the opportunity to go visit Stockholm, see the city, see the club, and I just immediately fell in love with it. An amazing city, people similar to Canadians, and there was I went in the summertime, so there was half a year left in the season, and they played half a year in their old stadium, and then the next year was in their new stadium, and didn't know much about Swedish soccer, the leagues, but the fans there, oh my goodness, probably some of the best fans I've ever played in front of. Yeah. And the stadium we played in front of, you know, there was 35,000 people out every home game. They would do this march from downtown to the stadium, all in green, flares, everything. Like, they love their pyro. They love their pyro in Scandinavia.
And it's just like the South Americans.
Right, and it's funny, like, as much as a player, you're like, really? But it's like, sometimes you're like, that's an atmosphere, you know, like, that's an atmosphere. So I have a soft spot for when I played in Hammarby, and I wish I could have played there longer, but things didn't work out.
You scored a couple big goals when you were
out there too. I scored the first goal in their new stadium.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it was the opening goal, and it was a banger too. Oh, my
Were you able to keep the
ball outside the box, wasn't it?
Outside that was about 25, 30 yards out. Yeah, didn't get to keep anything though. Just memories.
Just memories.
Lock them out.
What about you, Marco?
Tough to compete there. I think one of the coolest.
Yeah, you still have 15
things,
years in your career.
I haven't played a whole lot. I think one of the coolest places. I mean, I got to experience some different stadiums throughout the MLS, and wasn't necessarily playing. I think one that kind of goes to what Nick was saying was in Portland, playing against the Timbers was always like that. I think, and from my experience of watching and being in Europe, that's like the most European culture they have there. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like it's you know, and it's not massive, but it feels that way, right?
Yeah.
So being in that kind of stadium was cool. But I think, you know, what was, and you probably experienced it as well with the senior team, but with the youth national teams, we were under 17. We played Panama in Panama for a semifinal in the World Cup qualifiers.
Okay, yeah.
Then you realize what it meant to play in front of a passionate fan base. We're 16-year-old, you know, I'm a 16-year-old kid. We had already qualified for the World Cup, so we're kind of 25,000 people in the stadium, and you can't even hear yourself think, right? You're just like, imagine 60,000 somewhere else, right? In Germany, where they have filled out stadiums all the time, and I think
it's funny, like,
that was unbelievable.
Everybody preaches communication, and, you know, talk to your players, and you're like, you can't even talk to somebody 3 feet away from you. You know, and it's
what's communication? That was cool. The one thing about that was Panama's national stadium. Just a couple of weeks before that, Spain was there to play, and this is a year after they've won Euro. That's when they're in their best.
When they were still.
I don't know why they chose to write in like marker on top of the lockers.
Who sat there?
I sat under Iker. So I was like, that's kind of cool.
Get out of my way, I'm sitting here.
Let me scratch it out and put Marco.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of cool.
I mean, another one. He's a legend, right?
Awesome.
In his own right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I mean, everyone else was there too. You looked and it's like, oh, Xavi was there, Iniesta was there.
Yeah. You're sitting in a room with guys that just sat there that are worth millions and millions of dollars too. That's unreal.
Yeah, don't let that affect your head though.
No, not at all.
Try not to.
Like what Nick said, it was funny. Like, you know, you're preached about talking and whatnot. I was trying to talk to a defender on a corner kick from like literally 3 yards away. Nothing. Screaming top of your lungs, and you had to go tap him like this and say,
everything going
"Hey,
I hope he does his job."
Yeah, that's crazy.
Head the ball away when it comes in, okay?
That's all you're
telling me that.
Yeah. So what would you say? This one, we're gonna try to push a little bit, but
push the boundaries.
Funniest moment in your career.
Funniest moment.
Give us a good story, like nothing that's gonna get you in any trouble. But
don't need you to lose your contract just yet, all right?
No.
I think I'll say something. It's not a particular. It's just tough. But being, you know, a younger player growing up through the system, you see some of the older guys who've been in the game for a while, and there's a handful of names I could choose in Vancouver, for example. But you see these guys, what they are. You know, you look and you see them on the field, and they're characters. You know what I mean? And it's like, as a young guy growing up, you think, oh, all you see is the way they train, and they're professional, and they do everything properly. And then you see them, you know, off the field or something, and when they you know,
What are you trying
the
to say
humans.
about me?
I was just about to say.
What are you trying to say about me?
You should see Nick, man. He's,
Hey, man, if you can't have fun doing it,
you have to enjoy it, and you see that, right? And it's hilarious to see what these guys are like. But I don't know if you have a particular story.
Yeah, so in Germany, after every season, a lot of the German teams would fly to Mallorca in Spain for 2 or 3 days. So what they would do is they would take all the fine money throughout the year. So if you came late, missed a meeting, phone rang, it all goes into a big pot. And at the end of the year, they would pay for, I mean, there was quite a bit of money in there at the end of the year, pay for flights to Mallorca and 3 days or 2 or 3 days at a hotel. And pretty much what it was is you'd have all these teams from, you know, second, third division, because first division clubs, all their players usually take off to the World Cup or, you know, international duty. But you'd have probably, you know, 15 teams, all their players going to Spain just to party and just to drink and just to have fun. And, you know, I remember one of the guys was laying down in the sand and he had, you know, late night out. He was completely done. So, and we didn't want him to get burnt because it was, you know, so we had all the towels and wrapped it all like so you could only see probably about that much of his head. And we
Yes.
we put beer bottles around his body to make it, you know, look like he was dead, kind of. So he had an outline of beer bottles all the way around his body, laying on the beach at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but just a bunch of little stuff like that. You know, there's one times where, you know, while people were out training, you'd go move their vehicle somewhere else. So they'd come out after training and be like,
what?
You know, and see their vehicle on another training pitch and be like, oh, you know, or fill their car with balloons or just stupid stuff like that. But it made for the locker room to be fun. And you know, if somebody came in with these pants, if someone came in the locker room with these pants or shoes that were like, you should not be wearing that, you know, they'd be hung up in the rafters afterwards where they couldn't get it. They just like stupid shit like that. But
all those little things,
it made stuff fun and it made it enjoyable to come in and train. So
kept you on your toes too.
Yeah,
Well, the guys ripped me for this.
Right, exactly.
I gotta really check what I'm wearing.
I'm not gonna wear that
I'll
today.
just wear this one.
I'm not gonna wear that today. Yeah.
Well, you know, Marco, you coming through the system, you still being younger.
Significant.
What advice can you give to what advice can you give to the young keepers these days? And I know you're coaching younger kids these days as well, but what advice can you give to these kids?
Again, something I preach to myself still, it's you have to be patient, right? You have to, I think, trust the process as a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I went through a time where it felt like it was like, you know what, it's getting tough, just pack it in. You have to be patient, you have to, especially as a goalkeeper, right? Like, that's something that, I mean, is not a commonly known thing, is that only one guy's playing at a time. And when you're the 18-year-old kid trying to make your way through and there's a 28-year-old guy who's played for 10 years, you have to be patient and you have to keep working. So it's for anyone really, it's a daily process, right? It's every day. So for a goalkeeper, it's every day just learning, improving, and not being afraid to make mistakes either, right? Because it's the only way you learn is by going through those things. So I think just a constant, you know, trying to drive and push yourself to be better, and at the same time, you know, knowing that there's going to be ups and downs and continuing on, because it's going to take time. And you know, like I said, I'm still in that boat, right? I know there's going to be ups and downs in the future. It's a matter of just learning, improving, and just taking every day to push yourself to be a bit better. That's all I can say.
That's what we've even kind of heard in that standpoint a little bit about 2026 World Cup hopefully coming here. And there's Marco's name got thrown into that group of keepers for that.
Guess who's
World
going to be the coach?
Got him ready. You ready? You hear that?
Choose me, Nick. I'm in. That's the thing though too. That's a long-term goal, but you know, between now and then I'll have, you know, it's still 7, 8 years away, and it's like I'll be 29 then, and I know that I can look at that and be I will be in and around my prime, and that's a long-term goal to look to. But in the same sense, I have a lot of time to grow and improve and get there, right? So it's a patience thing, and it's a matter of just saying, you know what, it's great to have that long-term goal and that you know, mindset for the future, but what I can control is today. What I can control is how hard I train tomorrow, and that's it. And then, you know, we'll go from there. So, you know, if Nick's a coach, I better be starting. That's all I'll say. We'll see.
You're already getting the diplomatic coach.
I hope you got deep pockets.
Nick might FIFA. Rivalry.
We'll make sure that this doesn't ever hide this if it gets to that point, just so nobody can come back to this video. Nick, what would you say?
For me, I think you got to be a student of the game as well. You can't just play it. And I think there's too many kids that have that raw talent and just want to play, but they forget to be a student of the game. And I think now we have so much technology, videos, YouTube, everything where, you know,
24/7.
if you want to improve in a certain position, goalkeeper, whatever, you go on YouTube, you can type in whatever you want, and you can see videos on how to train, how to see, you know, world-class players. They break it down for you, type of thing. So I think if you want to improve and you want to be, you know, you want to take your game to the next level, you can't just train 3 times a week. You know, you have to start being a student of the game, you know, getting out, watching live games. Oh, I'm a right midfielder. Let's see what the right midfielder does. You know, watching players in your position, what works, what doesn't work. You know, you have to put in the extra hours, and it doesn't necessarily mean I need to be out training all the time. You know, of course that will help, but there's so much more to the game, I think, than just training.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because you see it now. I've seen a lot of guys go through the system, and a lot of them have had that natural raw ability.
Oh, yeah.
But when it comes time to it, like as soon as they take those cleats off, they don't really care about the sport anymore.
They have a lot of ability, but tactically they're not there, or as a team player they're not there, right? And I think now with all the equipment and everything, heart rate monitors, videos, you know, drones, everything. Yeah. You can improve so much as a player by watching yourself and learning. So
I remember how hard it was growing up, like just to watch. I want to learn how Beckham hits a ball so perfectly the way he does. But how do I I can watch him in a game, but
get that on the VHS and see what happens.
I was just about to say, you're either recording that or waiting until Saturday morning. You're like watching highlights from the previous week. And you're
exactly.
Like, that's how he does it. There's no PVR. You can't just press pause and be like, okay, I found it.
Rewind. Watch it again.
Who taped over this?
You know, it's cool to see. I mean, we've all kind of been there, and we've all seen it. Obviously, you guys. I mean, me and Harry played, and you've seen Harry play, so we won't get too much into that. But
rough memories.
Rough memories.
I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation.
But I mean, that's huge advice for the kids coming forward, and I think the biggest thing now, more than anything, that we've never had is that, especially in a place like Calgary and Alberta, where obviously Edmonton had something, and they've had it for. But I find that most people still didn't give it that validity, almost, right? Like outside of Edmonton,
it didn't. I think being a part of Edmonton for 2 years, I think people didn't know about it. Yeah. Like the marketing, the way they got the team out in the city and advertised it, people didn't know about the team. Yeah. You know, the soccer community didn't know about the team. They didn't know where they were playing, who they were playing against.
That's so crazy.
And
I know.
And to me, it seems crazy. You have a sport that has the most children involved, and you have a professional team in your city, yet a lot of these kids still don't know about it. Like, to me, that blows my mind.
It's a little harder for that to be the case.
And I think that's what the CPL has done extremely well, is marketed it, you know, grassroots all across Canada. They've done the trials, which I think is huge. You know, now they're doing different steps in the rosters of foundation players, local players. You know, they're making it a process to involve the fans, involve the communities, because at the end of the day, those communities is what's going to make this league sustainable, right? So I think, you know, being a part of Edmonton, I had a great 2 years there, but everybody talked about the potential of it. Now there's lots of potential, of course, but it never got reached.
What are you doing to pull that potential
out? Yeah, exactly.
It's nice to have.
So I think that's kind of where, you know, if CPL goes the right direction, I think it'll be a lot bigger than a lot of people think. You know, and I think over the next 5-10 years, it'll be huge for soccer in Canada.
Yeah, we were talking and we were saying that I could honestly say that probably in that 5 to 10 year window that it'll surpass CFL numbers in the stands.
I believe it.
The community's there and it's hungry.
Yeah.
It's always been searching. So, I mean, those things, like, wouldn't it be awesome to see Canada's Canada play a game in Calgary. No, never ever seen it.
Yeah.
I've been to Edmonton multiple times for those games, but nothing local.
Yeah.
You know, you got places like Saskatchewan that's same stuff.
Yeah.
The market's way smaller than ours is locally here.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have the.
It's nice to see as well as the diversity of all the different players coming together.
Yeah.
Different outreaches, like learning and teaching each other different styles of play.
Yeah.
You know, it's I think that's a big thing for the
Well,
market.
I mean, there you look at Alfonso. There's a perfect example of, you know, the diversity of somebody coming to Canada and now is probably Canada's biggest prospect, biggest player ever, going through what I think was called free footy up in Edmonton.
He was a refugee.
So it was actually a soccer team where, you know, if you didn't have the money to pay for registration, that kind of thing, you could join and play for free. To go from there to a club to Whitecaps and now to Bayern Munich.
Just shows, right?
Right? It's a great story.
Anything's possible, more or less. Put your mind to it and just keep rolling.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I feel like I've been really calm and really quiet throughout this, so I should probably step away for this. It's been a little crazy.
So I've got a question for you then.
Okay, let's hear it.
Too slow.
What is your dream, or to see where the CPL is in 5 years? What is your dream of it?
My dream and what I want to see out of the CPL is I do want to see a league that is not only going to grow, but boom. Okay, I know we had a conversation earlier about, you know, surpassing the CFL. I want to see that. I want to see this sport blow up and be just as big as anywhere else on the international stage. I believe we have the opportunity to do it, and the biggest thing I've always been a footy fan, just a little bit big-boned, but besides that, you know, I love the sport.
Big-boned footy fan.
No, I just want to see the sport blow up.
Yeah.
I've always had a dream of seeing it, watching it, and playing
Yeah.
internationally and playing professional. I haven't had that opportunity, but I do have the opportunity with you guys, which is great. But yeah, I want to see the CPL blow up. I want to see it, you know, start from the roots as it is now, and just grow into something beautiful. And as long as everybody else, including the fans, including you guys as the players, continue supporting this and keep putting 100%, you know, putting that foot forward, 100% forward, it's going to sustain. And it's
I think we now as players are not only players, but there's some responsibility or accountability in helping grow the league, right? And being a part of it, being
the first round of signings.
You know, you're almost ambassadors to the league or to Cavalry to help grow it, because there's nothing worse than playing in front of an empty stadium, and there's nothing better than playing in front of a packed stadium, right? And that's what we want at the end of the day.
There's definitely a bit of accountability that we took on as players, right? And we obviously want the league to do well, and like I said, it's like you're responsible for that in a lot of ways, right? So I was part of the you know, the allure of like being a part of it from the beginning. It's like you're a part of something new that could be huge for this country and for soccer in this country. So it's
as
exciting.
long as you don't let in any goals,
if we keep a clean sheet all season,
hey,
there's nothing but upside.
I think,
really. Those stands will be full.
They'll be full the whole year, no doubt.
So what you're saying is this is all reliant.
It's all
on you're keeping the ball out of the net.
There's a lot of weight on his shoulders.
So the success of Cavs.
Nothing.
I mean, I kind of look at it from my standpoint as being an immigrant, moving to this country, and our roots were my grandma's house in Chile and Santiago. We're a 10-minute walk to Colo-Colo Stadium, and that passion and that craziness is. I have one cousin who's not a fan of Colo-Colo. He shows up at the house with the jersey. My cousins rip his clothes off and throw him in another jersey. And, like there's that passion level. We don't have it.
No,
because
we don't.
we've never had it. We've
We don't
never
have
had
it
something
yet.
built.
Yeah,
We've never had it up to this point.
And it's crazy because the Canadian soccer fans can now be the first
to
grow that, right? Like you see all these songs and marches that they do in Europe that have been a tradition of 150 years. You know, now we can start those traditions. March to the stadium, songs in the stadium. What kind of dances, jumps, everything like that.
Too, and that's where I look at it now. Getting my kids. So I want those season tickets now, and then my kids are going to move in, and then grandkids.
Well, we didn't bring them for you.
Did Nick not call you?
Season tickets.
So did you not get that email, bro?
I know we got bad from Spruce Meadows.
Yeah.
But here it is, you know. A penguin walks in the door right now wearing a pink tutu dress. What would you do? Why the hell is he here?
I would probably take a picture just so people believe me, and probably question him why he's here.
It's probably the best answer right there.
See, I would
What's
say,
going on?
Harry, I think your girl should.
Or take off Harry's glasses and clean them for him.
Had a few too many pints. Is that true?
Well, I mean, really, on that note, I think we've kind of touched on everything, and really appreciate taking the time with you guys. And
Thanks for
and then,
hanging out.
Yeah,
and
it was
also
great.
really look forward to the
And
season.
great venue.
Yeah.
Another little shout out to
Thanks
Rail
to
Yard.
Rail Yard
Yeah.
for
having
letting us
us.
film here again, and we'll hopefully be doing more, getting
Hopefully.
in some FIFA games.
And hopefully this was a fun, interesting interview. You at least had beer to sip
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I did.
Nick
Taste that,
pulled
by
his
the way.
weight. Yeah.
But no, honestly, guys, thank you very much.
It's like a apple juice.
But no, thank you for your
No.
time.
Thank you, gents.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate
you.
it. Let's do this again.
Yes, of course.
Always
Every Friday.
Yeah.
Every Friday.